All right, and welcome to the RTI Instant Reaction Show. Ryan Shumpert, Rick Butler right here on the field. Ryan, for the final time, at least at home inside of Neyland Stadium for the 2022 season. But we saw today a victory for the Tennessee Volunteers by a score of 66-24 over the Missouri Tigers. Ryan, when you think about this game, it was a little bit back and forth in the first half. I think there were a little bit of worries, maybe Tennessee not playing up to the expectation that most people have them at. Second half, though, Tennessee really found their stride after Missouri made a little bit of a comeback. What's your first thought about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think you hit it on the head. Some self-inflicted errors in the first half that kept, and when Missouri got touchdown early in the third quarter, kept the game pretty tight. And then from there, Tennessee was absolutely dominant. And the self-inflicted errors, Hendon Hooker on fourth down didn't see a pretty open Jalen Hyatt, didn't throw it his way. Tennessee jumps off sides when Eli Drinkwitz is, or I say they line up over to center, or the long snapper when Eli Drinkwitz is kicking one of the most cowardly field goals I've ever seen in the first half. Missouri gets 4 points off of it. Busted play on fourth down where Tennessee has good coverage and two guys run into each other, ends up in a Missouri touchdown. And then the Jalen Hyatt drops late in the first half that went from Tennessee getting points to Missouri getting points for halftime. But after Missouri's first drive in the second half, Tennessee outscored the Tigers 38-0. Missouri didn't get past midfield again after that, and it ended up being a very easy senior day win for the Vols.
Yeah, and Josh Heupel kind of talked about it a little bit after the game. Somebody asked him, hey, on defensively in the second half there, were you changing up your scheme, or was it really more about just executing? And he said, hey, it's just about executing. We did not do much differently as far as scheme goes on the defensive side of the ball in the second half. There were a lot of times in the first half where, and really when Missouri found their success, it was because of the unpredictability with Brady Cook's legs. Obviously, they had two massive touchdown throws, one being, I think, 40 yards, another being 30 yards, something along those lines. But his unpredictability came with his really ability to use his legs, make a couple gashes in Tennessee's defense there.
Yeah, definitely. Some of it was designed runs, some of it was scrambles on third downs and moved the sticks, but I think he ended up with like 105 yards, and that's including a couple sacks in there too that went backwards for him. So you're right, and Brady Cook I thought was pretty solid all afternoon, and this Missouri offense is just so limited. And even in the first half, when you didn't feel like Tennessee's defense played great, Tennessee forced, I think it was 3 or 4 3 and outs. Every single time Missouri didn't go 3 and out, they got points, and that was kind of the problem for Tennessee. And it was really a couple big plays, a few really bad plays from Tennessee's defense, I think, is really what it was, more than a bad half from Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would certainly say the same. Now, one thing I want to also get into right here on the Instant Reaction Show, again, Tennessee defeats Missouri by a score of 66-24 here in Neyland Stadium. Ryan, we were going through Senior Day festivities. We saw Cedric Tillman go through that. We saw warm-ups. We saw Cedric Tillman kind of go through that as well. However, when the game started, man, he was back in street clothes on the Tennessee sideline. We learned after the game that it really was precautionary. There wasn't too many things that, directly kind of forced their hand into it. Ultimately, it was just a decision by the team that was made after warm-ups. Decided like, hey, you know what? Might be good to keep Cedric Tillman out for this game. So that was a little bit of a surprise there early on. I think maybe but by the end of the game, Tennessee racked up 724 total offensive yards. And again, all that lead up was to say without Cedric Tillman. That's pretty incredible. Obviously Tennessee's offense has been humming, and they've certainly figured out their stride without Tillman in the lineup as well. But just for nearly 3/4 of 1,000 yards, not bad at all for the Tennessee offense, especially considering a lot of its main success came there in the second half. I know Tennessee obviously got to 28 in the first half or so, which is still a big number. But no doubt about it, they really found their stride, really was able to open things up there in the second half.
Yeah, you're right, and I'll even have to go back to kind of the start of your comments here. You said we learned about Cedric Tillman. We didn't learn a whole lot post-game. Josh Heupel didn't say a ton about it. He said that it wasn't related to the ankle injury that he's had, and he said he does, expects him to be out, or expects him to be back, next week against South Carolina, playing against the Gamecocks. So we'll see. We'll have everything as that develops, but that was certainly an interesting little mix. And then you're right, it was a big day for Tennessee's offense. I thought Jalen Hyatt had big numbers again, but I thought Brew McCoy was Tennessee's best receiver in this game. He had some tough contested catches, a really nice over-the-shoulder catch where he found the ball well on a third down early in the first quarter on a Tennessee scoring drive, maybe the second drive of the game, something like that early on. So a big day for him. And then you saw when Joe Milton got in there the last two drives, Tennessee was airing out. I don't know if that was to try to make the score look more lopsided for they're vying for playoff position.
Yeah,
if that was maybe somebody like Drinkwitz shots at Tennessee this offseason as NCAA struggles. I tend to think it would be more the former. He was taking shots at Jeremy Pruitt. He wasn't taking shots at Josh Heupel, but still, Tennessee they were slinging the rock around with their backups, and man, I mean, it's not hard ever to see what the coaches saw in Joe Milton last year. But those two balls he threw today, especially the second one to Squirrel White, it was about 70 yards in the air almost, and just jaw-dropping. The arm talent that Milton has.
He leaned back and he just absolutely uncorked them.
Yeah.
I like that word for that kind of situation, uncorked, because
No,
I think that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. They were impressive throws. I mean, that second one might have gone into orbit. It was so high, and it was especially cool to watch because you saw Squirrel White's speed. I mean, he probably had a step when the ball on a DB when it was released, and he just ran under it and about 5 yards of separation by the time he caught it and kind of fell to the ground at the 1 yard line.
Yeah. Hey, one of the other big things about today's game right here in Neyland Stadium was that it was also senior day. A lot of the Tennessee players who have been in this program for a while, or at least have been around college football for a while, their final game in Neyland Stadium today, and there's a lot of guys to mention. We won't be able to mention them all, but a couple guys in particular, I think, who really have been standout players for the Tennessee program. Not only have they been a standout for the program, but they also played pretty well here today. Hendon Hooker being one of those guys. I thought Latrell Bumpus being one of those guys.
Byron Young, another one. Didn't have a big game today, but has had a big role in his 2 years in Knoxville.
Yeah, I think either way, you can look at the senior class for Tennessee and you can realize just how valuable they have been, whether they've been a transfer or somebody who came here since the beginning. I mean, we obviously know that Hendon Hooker is a transfer. He's only been here 2 years, but nonetheless, these guys and what they were able to do and how they've been able to put that together, man, a lot of the success that have been in this building right here is because of those seniors and because of the leadership that they've had. So certainly a great job by Tennessee kind of celebrating and acknowledging that today. But hey, you also had good plays made by the seniors today.
No, you did, and I thought Hendon Hooker had a nice moment leading the Pride of the Southland marching band. Rocky Top post game, you saw Jerome Carvin, you saw Trayvon Flowers, you saw some guys taking a little bit of extra time to kind of soak it all in after the game before exiting Shield Watkins Field for the last time. And then you heard Josh Heupel say a lot of great things about the group as a whole, but then some players individually, Hooker, Latrell Bumpus, and Toby Wilson as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, there is not too much more to get into for the game right now here in the instant reaction. Did you have any other kind of final takeaways or thoughts here on the game?
Nothing. I can't wait for the podcast.
Hey, there we go. That's a great plug right there. We will be back on the podcast in just a couple hours or so. Be sure to be on the lookout for that on Saturday night or on Sunday morning, wherever you get your podcast. But otherwise, that's going to wrap it up for our instant reaction show right here from the field for the final time inside of Neyland Stadium.
An undefeated season.
Undefeated for the first time since 2007.
Okay.
That's pretty remarkable.
I was curious when it was going to be. I thought it might be even longer than that.
I was told by a friend of the program, Jack Foster, that it was 2007. So if that's not right, I'll go talk to him about it.
Jack gets all the blame if he's wrong. If he's right, Rick gets all the credit.
Thank you very much. Hey, we're going to go ahead and end on that note because that's the right note to end on. Hey, for Ryan Shumpert, I'm Rick Butler. Make sure you are following along with Rocky Top Insider for all of your Tennessee football news, notes, and coverage. Otherwise, we will be back with you for the next game. We'll be back with you for the podcast tonight. Thanks so much for listening to the Rocky Top Insider Instant Reaction Show.